Hi friends, this is me Payal Dutta. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, ding dong, please don't forget to subscribe. Today we will be doing a short story by Alphonse Daudet. Alphonse Daudet, he was a French writer and he has written this story, The Last Lesson. So without further delay, let us quickly start the story. I started for school very late that morning. So the narrator, he is late for school and was in great dread. Dread means he was very much afraid. He was in fear. Fear of what? Fear of a scolding, a shouting. Especially because, that is particularly because, M. Hamel, their French teacher, had said that he would question us on participles. Participles means French grammar, the verbs of French, the gerunds of French. And I did not know the first word about them. So, the narrator, he had no idea about French grammar. And that is why he was scared of going to school that day. And on top of that, he was late. For a moment, I thought of running away. So the narrator thought that no, today I will not go to school. I will not attend school. I will run away from school and spending the day out of doors. I will pass the day. I will spend the day out of doors. Out of doors means outdoors in the open air. It was so warm, so the weather, it was so warm, so pleasant, so bright. The birds were chirping, they were singing at the edge, in the boundaries of the woods, the forests. And in the open field, in the grasslands, the meadows, back of the sawmill refers to the timber mills, the lumber mills, where the logs of trees are cut. What was happening in the fields? The Prussian soldiers, they were drilling. Drilling means they were practicing their regular exercise. And who was practicing their regular exercise? The Prussian soldiers. So as I told you, this story, it has been written after the Franco-Prussian War. So this story takes place in France after the defeat of the French by the German states. Prussian here refers to the natives of Prussia. In 1870, you had the Franco-Prussian War. And in that war, the French army, they were not prepared. And that is why the German states that was led by Prussia, they won. So in this story, we see that the Prussians, they have won over France, and now the Prussians have come to rule the French. So they have been colonized. The French, they have been colonized by the Prussians. And so these Prussian soldiers, they are drilling, they are practicing their regular exercise, they are marching in the open field behind the timber mills. It was all much more tempting. It was this scene, this atmosphere, this weather, the birds, nature. It was so tempting, so attracting, so provoking than the rules for participles. So instead of going to school, the narrator, he wanted to enjoy nature because the weather outside, it was so warm and everything was so attracting. But the narrator, he controlled himself. But I had the strength to resist, to control, to endure this temptation, and hurried off to school. He rushed. He rushed to school. So he had this plan of running away and spending the day outside with the birds and rejoicing nature. But then the narrator, he endured himself, he stopped himself from doing so, and he went to school. When I passed the town hall, now town hall is a building where government officials they meet. So when the narrator was going from his house to his school, on the way you had the town hall. So when the narrator he is passing the town hall, he saw that there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. So there was a notice board outside the town hall, and you had all the French people gathering outside that notice board. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. From that notice board, we only received bad, sorrowful notices. And what sort of notices? The lost battles, the draft. The draft means the money orders, because the Prussians, they had conquered them. So now they are demanding money. So those money drafts. The orders of the commanding officer. So the Prussians, they were commanding. The Russian states, they were dominating. So the controlling officer made his demands on that notice board. And all these news, they were bad news for the French people. And I thought to myself without stopping. So the narrator, he is thinking that notice board that has brought us news of sorrow. So what is it that they have put up today that all the people are crowding outside the bulletin board? What can be the matter now? So what bad news has arrived today? Then, as I hurried by as fast as I could go, because he is late for school, he is rushing, a blacksmith. Who is a blacksmith? A person who repairs iron things. And his name is Watcher. So the blacksmith Watcher, who was there outside the bulletin board among the crowd, with his apprentice. Apprentice means his employee, his trainee. Reading the bulletin. So they both were reading the notice. And when they saw that the narrator is running to school, they called after me. Don't go so fast, bub. Bub means an informal way to call someone a fellow, a buddy. You'll get to your school. So you'll reach your school in plenty of time. So you'll reach your school in time. Don't hurry, don't rush. So they are actually mocking him for being late. I thought he was making fun of me. He was mocking me. And finally, the narrator, he reached M. Hamel's little garden all out of breath. So by the time he reaches school in M. Hamel's garden, the narrator, he was breathless. He was out of breath. He was panting. Usually, in normal days, when school began, there was a great bustle. Bustle means hustle bustle. That is, a lot of movement, a lot of action took place when school began, which could be heard out in the street. So the noise from the school, it could be heard from the streets. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison. In unison mean everyone is like they are all saying, they are reciting the lesson together, they are repeating the lesson together. So you have the banging of desks, you have the students repeating their lessons very loud with our hands over our ears to understand better. So the students had to cover their ears because of the noise to understand their lessons. And the teacher's great ruler, that is M. Hamel's great ruler, he had an iron ruler with which he was rapping on the table. Rapping means banging. So this is what took place in normal days. There was hustle bustle, there was commotion, there was movement, the desks were banging, the lessons were being repeated loud. And you had the children, they are covering their ears to understand the teacher. And the teacher, M. Hamel, he is banging the table. All these took place in normal days. But today, things were different. But now, it was all so still. It was so silent. There was no movement. I had counted. Counted means I was depending. I had relied on the commotion, on this hustle bustle, on this disturbance, this noise, this racket. Why? To get to my desk without being seen. So if there is a commotion, some disturbance and noise, I will go to my seat and sit, and M. Hamel, he won't be able to see me because he will be absorbed in his lesson. But today, because things are all silent, M. Hamel, he will notice me when I walk up to my seat. But of course, that day, everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. So why Sunday morning? Because Sunday is a holiday, you don't have school. And that day, the school atmosphere was as quiet as a holiday, a Sunday, as if there was nobody present in school. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places. So the narrator, he has reached school, and through the window he saw his classmates, his friends, and they were already in their places. They were in their seats. And what was M. Hamel doing? M. Hamel walking up and down. So he is walking to and fro in the classroom with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. So the narrator, he is scared because he is late, because his classmates have already reached school, and M. Hamel was walking with the iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go before everybody. So in that silent atmosphere, he had to enter the room late, and everyone watched him, stared at him. You can imagine how I blushed because I was embarrassed for being late, and how frightened I was. I was extremely afraid for M. Hamel, he might shout at me. But nothing happened. Whatever I thought, nothing such took place. Instead, what happened? M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, he was very gentle to me that day, and he said gently, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you. So we were beginning our lesson without you. So go and take your seat." I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. So the narrator, his name is Franz, he's a little boy. He jumped over the bench and he went to his seat. Not till then, When I had got a little over my fright. Got over my fright means I overcame my fear because M. Hamel, he did not scold me. Did I see that our teacher, that is M. Hamel, he had put on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap. So his shirt, it was frilled, it had folds, it was beautiful, it was green. And he also wore a silk cap that was black in color and all embroidered. Embroidered means it was decorated. There was handicraft on it. And he never wore except on inspection and prize days. So M. Hamel, his outfit that he wore on that day, he wore those on special occasions. What occasions? On the days of inspection and prize days, prize ceremonies. Inspection means examination, invigilation. Besides, the whole school seemed so strange. It seemed so unusual and solemn. Solemn means it seemed very formal because earlier we used to shout, we used to bang desks. The teacher, he used to beat the ruler on the table. But today, it seemed like formal school. Everything was so disciplined. But the thing that surprised me, astonished me, amazed me the most was to see on the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. So today, the things were more different because usually what happens, the back benches of the classroom, that is empty. But today, even the villagers have come to attend the class, like ourselves, like the students. And among the villagers, you had old Hosser with his three-cornered hat. So old Hosser, he was wearing a hat that had three corners. The former mayor, the previous government official, even he was present because now the official has changed, the Prussians have taken over. The former postmaster, the previous postmaster, and several others besides, several other villagers other than the mayor, the postmaster, and Hosser. Everybody looked sad. They were depressed. And Hosser had brought an old primer. Primer means an elementary textbook. Elementary textbook of French. He had brought that along with him. And that book was thumbed at the edges. Thumbed means it was marked at the corners. And he held it open on his knees. He held open the elementary book on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. And he opened his spectacles and he placed them on the pages of the book, the open book. While I was wondering about it all, while I was thinking why the villagers have come, M. Hamel mounted his chair. He got up from his chair and in the same grave means serious, and gentle tone and soft voice, which he had used to me. So when I entered the classroom, he used a very gentle tone, a kind tone to address me. So with that same gentle tone, he is speaking again. And what does he say? My children, my students, this is the last lesson in French that I shall give you. The order has come, so the people that have conquered us are dominating us, they have given new orders. And what is the order? The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the school of Alsace and Lorraine. So, the French people will no longer be taught in French, but the schools will impart German education because they are now the colonized ones. So the suppressed ones have to learn the language of the dominant people, the Germans. The new master, your new German master, he will come tomorrow. This is your last French lesson, and so I want you to be very attentive. Attentive means I want you to be very mindful today, because today I will be conducting my last class with you. What a thunderclap these words were to me. Thunderclap means the words came to me like a thunder. I was shocked, I was surprised that how can this be my last French lesson? Oh, the wretches. The wretches means the unhappiness. Wretches means when you are unhappy, something unfortunate has taken place in France. That is, we have been colonized. That was why they had put up. That was what they had put up at the town hall. So at the town hall and the bulletin board, they had put up a notice. And the people, remember, they were crowding outside. So France, he now realizes that this is the notice that they had put up. The notice that had come from Berlin that only German must be taught in schools. My last French lesson. Now he is shocked. Why? I scarcely knew how to write. I didn't know how to write French. So how can this be my last lesson? I must learn the language. I should never learn any more, so I won't be able to complete my learning of French anymore. I must stop there then. So whatever I have learned, this is where I must conclude. I must stop because there is no one else who is going to teach me French anymore. Oh, how sorry I was. So now he is mourning, he is lamenting for not learning, for not studying my lessons, his French lessons, for seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Saar. So instead of studying his lessons, instead of learning his French lessons, what did Franz do? He went outside, enjoyed the weather, and he used to seek for birds' eggs. He used to find birds' eggs and go sliding. Sliding means he used to go out for water sports on the Saar. Saar is a river. It is a river, and on that river you have many water sports taking place, and Franz, he used to enjoy those water activities while classes used to go on. So instead of learning, he used to enjoy nature and he used to go out on water sports. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so his books, his French books, it seemed like a nuisance, a headache, an annoyance just a few minutes ago. Now they feel so heavy to carry. They felt like a burden, a pain to carry. My grammar, that is my basic knowledge of French, and my history of the saints, the history of France, the French soldiers, were old friends now. So now they are dead and buried, because from tomorrow I have to learn German. That I couldn't give up. I couldn't admit defeat because I don't know my grammar, I don't know the history of my people, so I have this willingness in me to learn French. So I cannot give up, I cannot defeat. And M. Hamel too, I cannot give up M. Hamel, my French teacher. The idea, the thought that he was going away, that he is leaving Alsace, that I should never see him again, we will never meet each other again, made me forget all about his ruler. His ruler means his punishments, his shoutings, his commands, his beating. I forgot all about that. And how cranky he was, how bad-tempered he was. Cranky means ill-natured. Bad-tempered, a hot person, a cross person. So France, he is forgetting all the negative things about M. Hamel because now he realizes that M. Hamel was the only person who could teach him French, and now he was leaving and he shall never see him again. Poor man. Man here refers to M. Hamel. It was in honor of this last lesson. Honor means it was in tribute in this opportunity of his last lesson, his last day as a French teacher, that he had worn his fine Sunday clothes, his elaborate, his exceptional, his excellent Sunday clothes. And now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there. So France, he is trying to understand what is happening. He has finally understood why M. Hamel was wearing his best apparel, his best clothings that he usually wore on special occasions, and why the villagers, Hauser, the previous postman, the previous mayor, and the other villagers, why they had come to attend today's class, why they were sitting in the back benches of the classroom. It was because they were very sorry. They were showing their sympathy for M. Hamel. They were also sympathizing with themselves because they did not learn much. They did not educate themselves much. That they had not gone to school more. So now the villagers, they are lamenting that they did not educate themselves. Now they also want to learn French from M. Hamel. But M. Hamel, he is leaving. And the people of France, they have no knowledge about their own language. So you see, from tomorrow when the German teacher will come, these villagers, they will have no identity of their own because they don't know their own mother tongue. It was their way of thanking our master. So by being present in the class, the villagers were showing their appreciation, their thanking, their acknowledgement to our French master M. Hamel for his 40 years of faithful service. So M. Hamel, he taught the people, the students of Alsace for 40 years. He served them as a teacher, a faithful, a loyal teacher, and of showing their respect, their gratitude for the country France, that was theirs no more. So the French state, they have taken over France. So France is not theirs anymore. And this is the last lesson in French that is taking place in Alsace. So to show respect, the people of the village, they have come. While I was thinking of all this, when I was thinking about all these things, why the teacher had dressed up like this, why the villagers had come, I heard my name called. So someone called my name and now it is my turn to speak in front of the whole class. And I have to speak in French. It was my turn to recite, to speak. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule of participle all through, very loud and clear and without one mistake. So now Franz, he is very much frightened. Why is he frightened? Because he has to speak in front of the entire classroom in the presence of M. Hamel, the students and the villagers. So he is telling that if I speak, then how can I speak loud and clear that I have to be audible and understood without one mistake. So I cannot make any error. Without any error, how can I speak French? Because I have no idea about the rules for the participle, the French grammar. That was dreadful, that was frightening. So Franz here, he is confessing that he has no knowledge about French grammar and he has to give a French lecture, a French speech all through completely in French, and his speech has to be loud and clear to the listeners, and he is scared that he will make mistakes. But I got mixed up. Mixed up means I was confused on the first words. So as I began to speak, I began to recite, I was confused and I got mixed up in the very beginning of the speech and stood there holding on to my desk. So because he is scared, he is holding on, he is grabbing, he is gripping his desk tightly. My heart beating, so he was palpitating in fear. His heartbeat could be heard and not daring to look up. So he lacked the courage, the confidence to look up at the audience because he doesn't know what to say. I heard M. Hamel say to me. So now M. Hamel, he is trying to comfort Franz because he can see that Franz is scared and he is gripping the table. What does he say? I won't scold you. So today I will not shout at you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. Bad enough means you must be feeling worthless, very much sorry for yourself. Why? See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I've plenty of time. That is, every day we tell ourselves that we have a lot of time and so we postpone it for tomorrow. I'll learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we've come out. Come out means that where we've reached by postponing things. That's the great trouble, the great problem with the people of Alsace. If Alsace is the place where they are living, that particular French region, that particular region of France. She here refers to Alsace. Alsace, the people of Alsace, they put off learning. Put off means they reschedule, they delay their learning till tomorrow. And those fellows, the people who have dominated us, that is our dominators, the Prussians, the people of the German states, out there will have the right to say to you. So when those dominators will come to us, they will have the right, the advantage to tell us, the French people, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen? So how can you claim, how can you consider yourself to be a French person and yet you can neither speak nor write? your own language. So you have no identity of your own. You cannot write in French. You cannot speak in French. Yet you claim to be a French person. How is that? But you are not the worst. So France, your condition is not the worst. Poor little France, we've all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. Reproach means to blame. So every one of us present here must be blamed. We are all at fault. Your parents, so now he is pointing out the faults in others. Your parents were not anxious. So France, your parents were not worried. They were not concerned enough to have you learn, to have you educated. What did they prefer? They preferred to put you to work. So they favored to put you to work on a farm like a laborer or at the mills. You see, you had the sawmills. So your parents, they wanted you to become a farmer or a person who works in the factories. And why did they want that? So as to have a little more money, a little more earnings for the family. And even I have faults. And I, as a teacher, I also should be blamed. I've been to blame also. I've been to be charged. Even I am liable for your bad days. Have I not frequently sent you to water my flowers, to do gardening to my flowers, instead of learning your lessons? So often I have sent you to look after the plants instead of giving you French lessons. That is why I too should be blamed. And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? So when I wanted some sort of a recreation for my own pleasure, what did I do? I gave you a holiday. I took a day's leave and gave you a holiday. But as a teacher, I shouldn't have done that. Then from one thing to another. So one thing means from one topic to another. M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language. So finally he has come to talk about the language, to discuss his last lesson, saying that it was the most beautiful means the most appealing language in the world. The clearest, that is the most understandable, the most logical, most sensible, that we must guard, we must safeguard, we must prevent it among us. So we must remember French and prevent the language among us and never forget it. And what will happen if we forget it? Then the colonizers, the dominators, will make us slaves. Because when a person are enslaved, when they are dominated, when they are suppressed, as long as they hold fast, they hold on to their language, their mother tongue, it is as if they had a key, an escape to their prison, their slavery. So as long as you know your mother tongue, you can escape the slavery of the dominators. So language, the mother tongue, it not only gives you an identity but also is a key to your freedom. Then he opened a grammar book and read us our lesson. I was amazed. So France is surprised to see how well I understood it. So long he did not understand French at all. But today he could understand everything. So he was very mindful and attentive that day. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. Was so much easy to understand. I think too that I had never listened so carefully. I was never so attentive in school before, like I was today. And that is M. Hamel, had never explained, he had never taught us everything with so much patience, so much tolerance, and so much willingness. It seemed almost as if the poor man M. Hamel wanted to give us, his students, all he knew, all the knowledge that he had of French before going away, before leaving, and to put it all into our heads, put it all into our knowledge at one stroke, immediately. One stroke means at once. So because M. Hamel, he was leaving, it seemed that he gave all his patience, gave all his willingness to teach the last lesson in French. Now, after the grammar, that is all the participles and whatever he had to teach, after the grammar lessons were done, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamel had new copies for us. He had new exercises for us. Written in a beautiful round hand, France, Alsace, France, Alsace. So he circulated the copies, and on the copies you had these words written, Alsace and France. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom. So because these copies, these pages are being circulated, they looked like little flags that was being distributed in the classroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. So when they received the paper, there was a rod at the top of their desk and they fixed it. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work. So all the students, they were set to work. They were prepared to work. They were all ready. And how quiet it was. So even when so much of movement is taking place, everything is silent. Today's class was extremely unusual. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. So when they were writing, only that sound could be heard. Once some beetles flew in. So some beetles have entered the classroom, but nobody paid any attention. They paid no heed to them, the beetles. So nothing could distract them. Not even the little ones, the little students. What were they doing? Who worked right on tracing their fish hooks. So these little children, the little students, they were tracing, they were drawing. What were they drawing? Fish hooks, that is fish traps. And they were appropriately, rightly drawing it. So this fish hooks, it is very symbolic in the story. Why is it symbolic? Because here the author, he is trying to say that the little ones, they were drawing fish hooks because fish hooks, they catch fish. So these little ones, they are drawing fish hooks as if to show that they want to hold on to their language. So the fish is like French, and the little ones, they want to hold on to the language, and so they are using the equipment of fish hooks. On the roof, the pigeons cooed. So the pigeons, they are cooing on the roof of the classroom. But their cooing is very low. Very low means it is lacking the quality. It is very unsatisfactory. And so Franz is thinking to himself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? So will the Germans, the dominators, can they change the language of the pigeons, the free birds? So when Franz, he refers to the pigeon, he is actually trying to say that just the way French is to a Frenchman, similarly the cooing of the pigeon is natural for a pigeon. So the cooing, it comes naturally to birds, and French comes naturally to a Frenchman. So here we come to know that their language, that is French, it was at stake, it was in danger. The Prussians, they wanted to remove French from their education and replace it by German. So the language of the dominators would be taught in their schools. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless. He was still in his chair and gazing first at one thing. So he was looking at one object in the classroom and then at another. So he was looking all around. He was as if he was inspecting everything. As if he wanted to fix in his mind. Fix in his mind means he wanted to memorize the entire classroom, just how everything looked in that little school room. So he wanted to memorize, he wanted to remember, he wanted to learn by heart whatever was there in that little compact classroom, because he is going to leave for the next day. Fancy. Fancy means his desire, his likeness, his fondness for the place, that school. For 40 years he had been there in that building, in the same place. And there he had his own garden, with his garden outside the window, and his class, his students in front of him, just like that. So nothing had changed in 40 years. Some things changed, and what are they? Only the desks and the benches had been worn smooth. Worn smooth means they had been used so much that they were damaged. They were worn out. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hop vine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. So the walnut tree had grown, and the hop vines are climbers, just like money plant. And M. Hamel, he himself had planted that hop vine. The hop vine, it had grown, and so it twined. It twined means it coiled. It coiled from the window to the roof of the house. How it must have broken his heart. So it must have made him heartbroken, disappointed. So he must have been feeling miserable that moment, to leave it all, to abandon the place that he has been living in for 40 years. Poor man, sad sympathy for him. To hear his sister moving about in the room above. So his sister, he was there in the room above the classroom, and she was packing their trunks, their luggages. For they must leave the country, that is Alsace, France, the next day. So his sister is getting ready for their journey, and the sound of her sister's movement, that must make M. Hamel feel quite miserable, because that is reminding him constantly that he must leave the place that he has been serving for 40 years. But he had the courage, he had the strength to hear every lesson to the very last, to the very end. And now the writing is over, the grammar was over, the speech is over, the writing is over. Now we had a lesson in history. And then the babies chanted. The young ones, they are chanting, they are repeating their ba, bi, bai, bo, boo. So the children, they are being taught pronunciation, the articulation of French. Down there at the back of the room where the villagers were sitting, old Hosser had put on his spectacles. So earlier he had placed his spectacles on the pages of the elementary book. So now when the young ones, they are pronouncing the French words, that is ba, bi, bai, bo, boo, old Hosser, what does he do? He puts on his spectacles and he holds his primer, his elementary book, in both hands, and he is joining the children while they are pronouncing it. Spell the letters with them. So he too wants to learn French. He is old, but now he realizes the importance of mother tongue. You could see that he too was crying. Hosser was also lamenting for not learning his lessons. His voice trembled, his voice was shaking with emotion, with sentiments. And it was so funny to hear him. It was hilarious to hear Hosser join the babies because he is an old man, that we all wanted to laugh and cry. So because Hosser was joining the children while they were pronouncing French, we all wanted to laugh at him. But we were so much emotionally upset that we wanted to cry at the same time. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. So the author, he is recollecting those days. All at once the church clock struck 12. So it was noon time. It was 12 o'clock. Then the Angelus. The Angelus means the ringing of the church bells. So it has struck 12, noon time, and so the church bells are ringing. And at the same time, the same moment, what can you hear? The trumpets of the Prussians. Trumpets are wind instruments, you know, the ones the bagpipers, they play. So these Prussians, they were exercising. So you had these trumpets while these trumpets help you to keep beat when you are marching. So when the Prussians, they were returning from drill, their regular exercise, the trumpets were blowing, and all the sound of the trumpets, the church bells, that could be heard under our classroom windows. So here the author, he is pointing out that after the Prussians had taken over France, even their religion was at stake. Because when the church bells are ringing, that sound of the bell, it is being disturbed by the trumpets made by the Prussian soldiers. M. Hamel stood up. So he was sitting and observing everything in the classroom. Now he stood up. Very pale. He was very sad. Pale means he was lifeless in his chair. I never saw him look so tall, so he stood up straight. My friends, he said, I. But something choked him. He couldn't speak anymore. He could not go on. He could not continue his speech. He was so much heartbroken. Then he turned to the blackboard took a piece of chalk and bearing on with all his might. Bearing on means he's applying. He's applying what? All his might, all his strength to write on the board. He wrote as large as he could. And what did he write? Vive la France. Vive la France means long live France. So he is showing his patriotism towards France. And then he stopped and leaned his head. He stopped writing and he rested his head against the classroom wall. And without a word, speechless, he made a gesture, he made a signal to us, the students and all the villagers who were present there, with his hand. With his hand he made a gesture, a signal. And what did he say? School is dismissed, class is over, and so you may go, you may all disperse. So our last lesson is over. So in this story, the author, he wants to point out the importance of one's mother tongue. For him, one's mother tongue is like a key, an escape. An escape to what? An escape to domination, an escape to slavery. So we people, we must safeguard our mother tongue. France, you see, who disliked French, the villagers who were uneducated, everyone attended the last lesson. Everyone proved their patriotism, especially M. Hamel. Even France accepted that French to a Frenchman should come naturally, as cooing comes to a pigeon. Their language is the key to freedom, freedom from the German dictatorship. So Alphonse, he tells us that we shouldn't ignore learning. We shouldn't postpone our lessons for tomorrow, the next day. Because language, it builds our identity, both as an individual as well as in a group. It helps us to socialize. Thus, we must not take it for granted. Here, Alphonse, he highlights the importance of our mother tongue to create our identity and to pave way for our freedom. So he is telling that language is the only means to survive a free life. So with this, I come to an end of today's discussion. If you have any queries, you can write it in the comments below. I will definitely answer. And in the description box, you will find a small quiz on this chapter. I would love if you would participate in that quiz. And we have a Telegram channel and a WhatsApp channel. So if you want, you can join that, because I share grammar practices and few notes related to your syllabus in those channels. So till I come with my next video, ta-da!